So you probably already noticed that when we say that Amsterdam Ruby meetup is at least on the date 16th of August, but usually not really on the time, 7 p.m. Anyway, sorry for that. That mainly has to do with me. Anyway, welcome all, also the people at home, welcome to this iteration of Amsterdam Ruby meetup, which we jokingly call monthly. But we really aim to have this thing monthly, and sometimes things are just getting too hard or too hot. Like previous time, it was just too warm in the Netherlands to not be barbecuing or something. Anyway, today we are at a fantastic location. We traveled all the way here because this is WeTravel. They have an actual office in Amsterdam, I think one of the last tech companies. Thank you for having us, WeTravel. I'm just question. Are you looking for Ruby engineers?
Yes, I always look for.
They are looking for Ruby engineers. So you might be looking for jobs. Feel free to just talk to our sponsor. Yeah. So go to WeTravel's website, or if you're here in person, he's over there. So talk to people at WeTravel. They do nice things. Sponsor a community, for instance. Anyway, so. There's a whole team organizing Amsterdam Ruby meetup events. 4 of us. Well, you have Raita, usually making sure that we have this thing on a monthly basis. It is us making sure that we can't make it for some reason. Then we have Tom. Today he's doing a lot of the AV stuff. Hello, Tom. But also a fantastic speaker. Making presentations here from time to time. So that's fun. Then clearly we have Floor. She's not here. Well, she's at home, making sure that all the community channels stay sane today. By the way, she also ensures that the organizing team stays sane. That's also a thank you to Floor. And then you have me. I'm just the unfunny dude of this org. So we have a chat. You can find me on the chat. As far as I know, it will be on your screen. It will not be on your screen. But if you're looking at this thing from over there, I am looking at you now. Yes, them, yeah. Go there because you can join the chat. If you're here, you can just chat. Amazeballs. Yes. If you're going to join the chat, either in person or online, we have a code of conduct. So we even have that thing for the organizer, Raita, for this guy being unfunny, but also for y'all. So if you're unaware of what a code of conduct is, follow the thing that's on your screen, that you can't look at this thing right now, but feel free to just poke at any of your organizers and we'll be happy to give you a lecture. That sounds wrong. Right. Now, with all the unpleasantries out of the way, I think it's time that we talk about what we're here for today anyway. So we have 2 speakers. That's the usual setup of us. We have Esther. She's going to talk immediately after me. The fun with that is that she's going to talk about moving DevOps to the cloud. Does it mean you get rid of engineers?
Almost.
Almost getting rid of engineers.
Almost getting rid of engineers.
Yes. So now we get to feel what it feels like, huh? And then we have Aidan, who's also here already. Hello. And he'll have he'll introduce us to, well, what he sees as a hobby project. And when I saw the amount of tech specs, I was like, oh, my hobby is really boring. Anyway, so Aidan will be after the break, and we'll probably cut it out if it is on YouTube. We can't cut it out if we're live streaming because, anyway. So Aidan will come roughly at 8-ish. So any time not spent on your presentation, nor the QA that you can join the chat for, or you can ask questions in real life after the talk, we'll just have more time for libations. It's a silly word for drinks. Now, I was completely walking off cam. The fun is, look at this cable, you see it? We usually have more of this. That means that we can give all the speakers a microphone. But today we don't, because I think my daughter likes spaghetti. So we're just going to do a very awkward handing over of the mic, and I hope that, oh, I can mute this thing over here. Don't worry, Tom. I'll just do that. And if all is nice and dandy,
You should be able to hear me.
yes, would the peeps on the internet nod? The floor is yours.
Okay, awesome, thanks. I haven't said anything yet, so you might want to wait for the applause. Thanks for that nice introduction. So today I'm going to talk about my adventures as an engineer in the ops world, transitioning myself to a more DevOps-focused role. I don't know if any of you have an ops background. I know I do, but okay, I'm not the only one in the room. That's good to know. Okay, so at least it will give you an idea of my perspective on this whole new DevOps adventure. I am assuming that most of you are more on the developer side of the spectrum. Okay, cool. Then please don't hate me afterwards. Let's get started. For those of you who do not know me yet, I'm Esther Barthel. I've been working in IT for over 20 years. Let's leave it at that, without aging myself too much. Mostly focused on end-user computing, so building virtual desktops and the whole infrastructure behind it. So that's where my background in ops and infrastructure comes from. I'm also very active in different community programs. Due to the end-user computing, I started as a Citrix technology professional, and then basically moved on to that awesome, cool program called the Microsoft MVPs, which is like, oh, and then you get in and you're going, oh, now all of a sudden I'm a cool kid. Never knew what the code of conduct was for that. But I'm very happy in sharing my knowledge in all the different communities that are out there, and very honored to be here this evening as well. One of the other things to give back to the community, I'm also one of the founding leaders of a Women in Tech mentorship program. I always make this awkward joke that it's not a dating show for me, because I am already very happily in a relationship, but it's very much to encourage other women in tech to be more visible, to be more out there in the community. So if you know of anyone that is still struggling and is looking for maybe not a mentor, but at least a cheerleader, feel free to reach out to me and get us introduced, and I'd happily rub off some of my enthusiasm for tech with the others. And last couple of years, well, we're now calling it DevOps, but I think when I really got into it, it was still called automation and orchestration. So for me, it all started with automating Windows deployments and Windows configurations. And then I discovered REST APIs, and things went bad after that, because I discovered that automating web services is fun as well. So I kind of went all the way and now call myself a DevOps engineer. So today, as I mentioned already, I'm gonna take you a little bit on my journey through this whole transitioning to the cloud and new roles like DevOps. My first question when I heard about DevOps was, oh, cool. So if you look at the definition, it still is like very vague. It's about combining developer skills and tools with operations skills and tools. So that sounds like it's like a 50-50 deal. So I was very curious where I should position the DevOps role in the whole spectrum. Is it more like on the ops side, maybe more on the dev side. I wasn't too sure, but I think now with the experience that I have and the struggles that I faced, I'm pretty confident it's more on the dev side of the whole spectrum than the operation side. And I'll get into the why of my positioning in a minute through this presentation. This is one of my CTP friends, Aaron Parker. He's also an MVP. And I was kind of triggered by his tweet, basically stating that he also comes from an ops background, stating, I think, the fear that a lot of operations engineers, administrators have. That all of a sudden our work is all about developing. So are we becoming developers? And then before I could give like a quirky reply on Twitter, Tobias, one of the other guys from the CTP program, already responded, which makes my life easier because now I can simply quote his tweet. Because what I really loved about his reply is that he gave us an impression. He's a bit older than me, so he does know a lot about the history of IT. And I love that he's basically made us remember that automation has always been a part of our drive to optimize processes and to make our work easier, to just look at all the standardizations, the standard processes that we're doing, and trying to at least automate that in one way or another. And I do agree with him that right now, the coolest part about transitioning to DevOps is that there are so much cooler and better tools out there to make our work easier. And then I came across this one, and I thought, whoa, that is a lot of tools. And I can totally understand if this is a bit intimidating. At least it was for me. Seeing so many tools, you don't even know exactly where to start. So then I remembered that before we dive into the technologies and getting all excited about implementing this new automation way of working, it might be interesting to first look at the processes that we're using with DevOps. And the reason why, for me, that was a very first and big important step to take was that I quickly discovered that I needed to change my own mindset from that ops perspective to adapting a DevOps way of work, so to speak. And that's because I don't know if any of you are familiar with both project methods. I, for one, am old enough to definitely be drilled to follow the waterfall method. And now, all of a sudden, I am adapting to an agile way of working. And for me, the biggest mindset of mind change in this process is if you're looking at the waterfall method, it's very much fixed phases. You have to make sure that you have all your functional requirements in place. You start with functional design documents, making sure you have a full blueprint of your solution. Then you're moving to the next phase, making sure that you get your technical design documents in place. So what technologies are we going to use to reach our functional requirements? And then the exciting part comes. We're going to build stuff. We're going to make all kinds of assumptions, and we're never verifying any of the assumptions because we have it all in documents. And then after we spend months and months and months building, we're going to release it to our end users. And surprise, surprise, they're not always that happy with what we build, because somewhere in that process, we kind of lost touch with our end user and their requirements. So it's hard with the water, or at least it felt to me like it always was like a hard thing to get a successful project going, because somewhere along the line we got too excited about technology and forgot that it also needs to be usable for the end user. One of the things that I learned with the agile way of working is because it is smaller iterations that still have those same processes, it allows for multiple checks with those releases with your end user. Are we still on track? Are we still delivering what you're asking? So that definitely for me feels like the agile way of working gives me a more chance or better chance on success, on having a happy end user and having a very user-friendly product, so to speak. And I love to think in pictures, so I wanted to make sure that I had a visual example as well. So what I meant with waterfall is we start with that functional requirement that we want to have a swing hanging from a tree. But somewhere in the build process, we got so excited about the technology that we kind of forgot that in the way we build it, it couldn't swing anymore. So by the time we got that feedback from the end user, oh, I love this swing that you built, but there's no swinging. How am I gonna use it? We end up with like a quick fix. At least now you can swing, so what's the problem, right? I don't think that's a very happy user. So I love the way how the agile process tells a different story. You start with what we call the most viable product, so the minimum set of requirements. In this case, I do understand that it looks a bit unstable, but at least it allows you to swing from the tree. Well, we got some feedback from security saying that this wasn't a very secure solution because it wasn't always clear to the end user which part needed to be in there to swing on the tree. So definitely improving on that step. And it allows us to focus on that particular feature. And what you see is at the next step, we're getting feedback from the users. Still, that tire didn't feel too comfortable, finding new ways to focus on that requirement. And I think in the end, we build a pretty damn good product. Oh, I hope I'm allowed to say that. Okay, cool. So that's definitely usable. And I think that definitely gives a good end user experience. So I hope by making it a bit more visual, it now is becoming clear why that agile way of working does have its benefits, especially in nowadays in our work where releases of software are going faster. So we do not have that luxury anymore to have like those long debates and going back from an end result back to the drawing board, so to speak. So this definitely helps us in focusing on smaller feature changes. And if we're talking about Agile Scrum, there's also a new way of collaboration. At least for me, from operations, I just used to do ticketing services. So just picking up a ticket, making the changes myself, and it was very much, even though we weren't a full team, it was very much solo work. So I didn't have to share a lot with the other members of my team. With the Agile Scrum way, it's all about 3 major roles: the product owner, a Scrum Master, basically your facilitator. So instead of like the manager with the hierarchy, it's more about facilitating the team. And then that's me somewhere in the middle, the development team. And what I love about this approach is, first of all, I love how the new DevOps teams have this kind of natural, we're in this together attitude. I know it doesn't always start that way, but once you get rolling and get your experience within the team, you are noticing that everyone has this shared responsibility to build a good solution or product. So that's definitely a different mentality than just being there on your own and trying to solve the world problems. And the other thing that I love is the cross-discipline team. and this is where I'm looking at you right now, because I know we had some discussions about diversity teams, which I totally related to my cross-discipline teams, which is a short-sighted thing. I'm totally aware of that now. Thanks for that. But with the cross-discipline team, what I love is that not everyone has to be at the same technical level. It allows for different skills, different specialties to be working together in the same team. And it also gives you more opportunity to grow as a person and in your technical skills by learning new technologies from the other experts in the team. So to me, it feels much more like a team that enables me to be the best person that I can be, or maybe the best DevOps engineer that I can be. Oh, yeah, and then there's this other thing called the daily scrum. I don't know what your experience is. I don't know if everyone already is doing the daily scrum. No? Okay, so my first association with the daily scrum, especially if you look at those first 2 questions, it kind of felt like going back to camp, sitting around the bonfire, singing Kumbaya, sharing like stories. So what did you do yesterday? How was your weekend? So what are you going to do today? And maybe at the beginning it even felt like, someone is very interested in how much work I'm doing. Am I making enough progress? Is this like me having to explain how much work I'm doing? I'm not entirely sure what the purpose is. But then I had like this epiphany moment because during those first daily scrums, I also learned that as a person, I'm not very good at asking for help. And that's based to some childhood experiences, so to speak, or experience from the past that gave me this whole I can do it on my own attitude. But it's now not very helpful when you're trying to collaborate within a team. So for me, all of a sudden, that daily scrum, and especially that last question, what is in my way, is like a lifesaver. Because I have this annoying habit of having like tunnel vision to zoom in and to hyper-focus on the challenges that I'm facing in my work. So instead of realizing that there are a lot of experts within the team and to ask for help, at least by answering that question, I give the others in my team the opportunity to offer help. If I cannot ask or recognize the moment in time when I can ask for help, at least this gives the others in the team the opportunity to offer help by saying, well, yesterday I tried to implement this web service and I got stuck with Apache. I have no idea how this config file works. I'm still trying to figure out with Google how to get it working. And then all of a sudden there's an opportunity within the team for someone else to say, well, I already did that like last month. Do you want me to help you and have a look with you on where you might went wrong or what kind of assumption you made? Maybe I can share some of my experience. And that definitely meant that instead of being stuck for like 5 days stubbornly trying to figure it out on my own, I now had a much more effective solution by getting help offered. So that's just one of the experiences that I had that at least after those first Kumbaya moments got me excited about agile working and daily scrums. And I figured I should also share with you some of the lessons that I learned focusing on my specialism, getting infrastructure automatically deployed and configured, which nowadays usually is called infrastructure as code. I don't know how much of you or how many of you are working with infrastructure as code on a daily basis. Still much more focused on Ruby, I guess, right? Yes. So for me, it started with the definition. Infrastructure as code is definitely focusing on provisioning resources, which could either be in the cloud or on premises, but in a similar way as software is developed. And basically that translates in using templates and scripts. And I'm making sure that I say scripts because I definitely am not a programmer. Using templates and scripts together with an orchestrator to deploy resources. In my example, it's Azure, but it could be any platform, as long as you have the right templates and scripts. That's pretty cool, because that means that with those templates and scripts, I can probably reuse some of my code in deploying multiple environments. So starting with like my Hello World example, creating a storage account in Azure. I don't know how many of you have experience with Azure. Okay, cool. Well, this is like a basic example. So it's not like with all the cool stuff in it, but it definitely gives you very cool feeling about yourself once you accomplish it. So if we're looking at automation and automatic deployments, I usually get a lot of, I'm not going to say resistance, but a lot of questions from other engineers in regards to, well, should we definitely automate each and every step in our daily processes? And in order to help them answer the question, I kind of did like a recording. So on this side, we're having, so for the viewers, that's the left side, we're having the manual actions, and I speeded up the video because it's now very much fun to keep watching this for like 5 minutes. So these are the manual settings, and the other one is the automated one, where I took each and every step, including creating the template, writing out the script before executing it. I was going to say, who thinks that the automated way is going to win? But I guess we already found out the answer, right? So going through the different steps manually in the Azure portal right now is much faster than having to build your template, having to write the code, and basically offering an automated solution. This doesn't give us a lot of goodwill to switch to an automated deployment. But I figured that the really cool investment with automation and infrastructure as code is the reusability of those templates and scripts. So what if we're going to do a second run? Going back to the manual steps in the portal, unfortunately, I cannot just say, give me the same storage account, but in this case, just give it a different name. But I can do that with my automation, because I can just have that as input parameters that are variable. So if we're running the same comparison again, who do you think is going to win now? You already figured it out. Look at that. So basically, if I have to create a storage account more than 3 times in my entire career, okay, taking into account that we're also building the automation. So let's say more than 8 times in my career, I have to create a storage account in Azure. Then automation definitely is going to make my life easier. So I think that's the coolest way of having that discussion. It's not about should we automate everything, but it is definitely about should we automate standardized tasks and repeatable tasks. And I think this is where, for me at least, the fun starts. Because now it's interesting to focus and to learn infrastructure as code. And of course, there are also more benefits in infrastructure as code, but I already noticed the time, so I'll skip ahead. One of the other things that I wanted to make clear, when we were looking at the definition of infrastructure as code, it zoomed in on templates and scripts. So in order to understand when to use what, I want to explain imperative and declarative code as well. And I have some cool examples to make sure that you don't forget these two definitions. Imperative code is all about executing a sequence of commands. So basically it's following a recipe. And as you can see, the recipe for the hamburger is very strict. It already starts with exactly what ingredients are in the barbecue sauce and how to prepare it. And then it even gives you clear instructions on how to build that bun with the lettuce and the tomatoes and everything. So I hope that gives you an idea of what imperative code is all about. You have to write out each and every step. If we translate that to basically my world, to infrastructure as code, it's all about using scripts. In this example, it's a PowerShell script. Once again, it has clear steps on every action that needs to be performed in Azure. Then there's declarative code. And the cool part about it is that you can only focus on your end configuration. Basically, you only specify this is the resources that I want to have in Azure. And how it is made and prepared, similar like ordering a burger in a restaurant. Okay, to some degrees, I might be interested in understanding what the hell they're doing in the kitchen. But basically, I just want to get that picture in a live 3D model on my plate. And this still gives me the opportunity to specify how well cooked the burger is, and if I want to have tomato or maybe have them leave it out. But that's just part of specifying my end configuration. If we're translating that, once again, to infrastructure as code, it's all about using templates. So the templates still only specify my end result. And usually there's a tool or an executable that that performs those actions for you. It's like a black box, but it definitely translates my specifications into resources in Azure. The other thing, if we're talking about infrastructure as code, at least for me, and to make sure the conversation within the team is easy, is to start with using workflows. For me, a workflow is just a visual representation of the process steps that you're doing, either unconscious or very consciously. And I'm not going to dive into everything in details, but in this case, using that example of that storage account, it could be as simple as just specifying 3 steps. I need to log on to Azure. I need to create a resource group because each storage account has to live within a resource group, and I need to create a storage account. But by making this visual, it already allows for people that have less scripting skills or have trouble reading scripts to still join in the conversation and maybe say, oh, but I think you forgot that you need something else, or you forgot a step in the process. So that makes it more inclusive in my perspective, or in my opinion, to keep the team working together and sharing and getting excited about the processes. And the second step is, because this is much more a conversation at a functional level, the second step is all about adding in those technical products and tools that you have to implement the functional steps that you described in your workflow. And even getting the understanding of what sections could be imperative code, like a script, because it's just a one-liner to create a resource group, or could be easier done using that template, declarative code, because I don't want to build an entire script with hundreds of lines of code specifying each and every step, doing all the error handling, if there's like a tool out there that can easily do all that for me. And then we're getting to the cool part. Because now, all of a sudden, it becomes very easy to translate that workflow into what we nowadays call pipelines. Because we already have that workflow, so it's just a translation of those functional described steps into maybe a YAML formatted pipeline instructions. And all I have to do is make sure that I understand what will trigger that workflow to be started. So making sure that I have the triggers in place, or maybe just have a schedule configured for it. And using pipelines also gives me the opportunity to use a lot of built-in tasks or marketplace tasks that others have already created for me. So that, again, is more like going the declarative way than just writing out everything on my own, so to speak. So those are basically the lessons that I learned. It's not about all my own victories. It's about being smart and combining code that someone else maybe already written, or tools that someone already developed. And then before you know it, all of a sudden you're like a DevOps engineer.
This is where I get to move really close to you, so peeps can hear me. Yes, hello. It's nice and convenient, right? Oh, yeah. In case you want to ask a question and you don't want to ask them in real life, we have a thread in general. Yeah.
We can make it work.
Oh, yeah. Probably. We have a thread in general where you can ask all your questions for Esther, but you can also do it in real life. But then I have to repeat it, so then you're going to ask a long question, I'm going to make it shorter, and peeps don't understand each other, and everyone's like, can we get pizza? So feel free to do it in Slack. Feel free to do it in real life. Floor Grace, by the way, congrats on your talk. I think it is quite clear. I've been struggling a bit with both waterfall and agile, and I'm getting tired of the endless sprinting. So I also have a question: when can we get the code back to waterfall after waking up from this endless sprinting? Or what will come after it?
Wow. Well, I think if you really look close at agile and waterfall, agile just became smarter in implementing waterfall in smaller bursts. But that's just one opinion, so to speak. Okay. But I do understand the tiredness of all the sprinting. But yeah, for me, it still feels like I can focus on what I love to do most. Yeah. And that's focusing on the technology and the implementations. And especially with that Scrum Master, the facilitator, everything that's more like process-based within the company. I don't have Visio. That's something that they can worry about, and I can just focus on just continuing with the scripting. So for me, it feels like an improvement. But I do understand if you're not a sprinter, it's going to be hard.
Okay, fine. That makes sense. Then I have a question from Floor de Rees. Hoi, Floor. So what is a good community around DevOps in the Netherlands that folks interested in this should definitely go to or check out? You may just name names and...
Thanks, Floor. So I know it was very recently that they organized DevOps Amsterdam. I don't know if any of you went to DevOps Amsterdam. Unfortunately, I had COVID, so I couldn't join. But I'm looking very much forward to the next event, which will be DevOps Eindhoven. So that will be the next one. It will be, I think, in October, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm really making sure, not taking any risks, to be able to attend and join in the DevOps fund there. So that's at least one of the events that I know. And I know DevOps Amsterdam, I think, also has like a Slack channel. So, but other than that, for me, it's still like baby steps. So I'm just trying to figure out, especially within the Microsoft community, where to go to and where the fun parties are. But so far, pizza is definitely making it more inviting and interesting to go to meetups.
Nice. Yeah, would you be so kind to hold it so we don't have to just... Okay, good. Nice. This is a question from me. I've been working at a company where you had those DevOpsers. They were part of the development team, yet weren't. So they were in a team doing their DevOpsy thing, stifling innovation for all the other opsers or other devers. How do you deal with that?
I have to admit, I'm right now one of those team members that is in a DevOps team within a company that is still trying to figure out how to have all the other teams adapt to an agile way of working. So it kind of feels like we're the pioneers. And it also meant that I joined that team very late. So I think they already had like a year head start. So now we're basically making sure that we stay connected with the business processes. So now with each and every iteration or sprint that we're having, we're going back to the functional discussions and especially making sure that all the assumptions that we are making are being verified within the business. Because I think one of the biggest risks in having that autonomy as a DevOps team is that you just run wild like one way and forget that there are so many more people that eventually want to benefit from what you're automating. So I hope that answers the question. Not really.
Mostly. Well, yeah, so the experience is from a company where the engineers were potentially going a bit faster than the ops engineers. And, well, it wasn't going really fluid. But then again, maybe when I'm old, I'll learn how to do this thing. And if I know, I'll tell you. Don't worry.
Okay.
Then Floor wants to know how she can explain to her dad, no, someone else's dad, that waterfall, her dad, her friend's dad, I guess, is a total waterfall fan, and she wants to know how to explain to her friend's dad that their
Asking for a friend.
Yes, that their era is over. So how do you convince Agile to the waterfall peeps?
Wow. The waterfall fans, the diehard waterfall fans. Well, I struggle with that still today because I had this one engineer that just kept throwing all the what if questions. So basically, what I learned is that the waterfall fans very much love to have that full overview, that full blueprint, to have every scenario covered. So they want to have answers to each and every what if question. And it's very hard if you're adapting the agile way, where you're focusing basically on a subsection of your solution, at least for that sprint, to tell them, well, I do understand all your what if questions, but we're not going to get to address them until we're like in sprint number 10. Right now, we're focusing on this. So I think the only way to get them in a cooperative mode is to at least explain to them that they can still stick with their waterfall method, but only narrow down their scope. Because I think that's the easiest way to transition to a more agile way of working. Understanding that you're still following the same process within your sprint, but it's just for a smaller scope. So limit the what if questions, please.
Okay, good. You probably have some questions because for now you've just only heard Floor and me asking questions.
Yeah, so what is your favorite tool for visualizing workflows and pipelines?
Oh, what is your
favorite tool for visualizing workflows and pipelines?
Well, as you saw in my presentation, I love the workflows. That was just Visio, but I discovered Draw.io, which is a web-based Visio, free to use, which I just love because it's made it even easier for me to build examples, visual examples for branching strategies that you can use as well. So Draw.io is definitely now my most favorite tool, to be honest, to at least have like that first functional level workflow so we can all have a common discussion about the topic. More questions?
Yes.
Then let's have drinks.
Yes.
Or
details.
yeah.
No, yeah, definitely. And that means that we will have you back in, I guess, 10 minutes over the internet. And here we just form a queue in front of the loo.
Okay.
No, we aren't. Are we live?
Yes, we are.
Really? We're really live. Anyway, so we're really live. Oh, there's my pen. Silly me. So I hope that you enjoyed the previous talk by Esther. Of course, if you have some questions, she's not part of our Slack. Yet. That's exactly what I wanted to say. So feel free to keep asking your questions in that thread in general, so I don't have to send emails to Esther, but she can just respond there. Well, thank you for bearing with us that we're back at 8 and then we're back at 9 minutes past 8. Amsterdam time, that is. So, if you have any questions for Aidan, who's sitting there, you can ask them in a Slack thread in the general channel. So, go there, and potentially Floor already created a question thread. Otherwise, just feel free to do so, because I don't have my phone here now. Yeah, that's what I said. She keeps us all sane. Anyway, Aidan is going to have a talk about his hobby project, right?
Yes.
Or should I say hobby projects, plural?
Just one.
Yeah, with a busload of tech?
Yes.
Yes. Is that any tech that you also use professionally? No. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a hobby project, right? It would just be work. Anyway, so in his free time, he likes to build as many projects as possible. I just saw from his slide that he likes running, and he has a background in graphical design. But now I'm stealing his own introduction, and I shouldn't do that to a human. Anyway, here we have Aidan. Oh, and a mic. Yeah. Yeah.
This is my first presentation, so I'm probably gonna be nervous. Anyway, so I consider myself an idealist who envisions an ideal world rather than the real one. Some consider us naive, I think, but we believe that striving for perfection makes the world a better place, which is also very popular. I love running, drawing, writing articles. I'm software engineer at HackerOne. If you are looking for a nice place to work, by the way, I highly recommend to check out the hackerone.com careers page. And today I want to share with you the project and the research that I have done while building it. It's a small project I've made during the winter holidays. It's like that small. I don't know, very small. And I want to share the information I didn't know before I got involved. Some of it may sound unconventional, and yet hopefully the talk will help to clarify a few uncomfortable topics. Hopefully you'll find it just a second. Connecting. Looking for my MacBook. Jesus Christ. Yeah, okay, right. So art is a diverse range of human activity. The resulting product involves creative expression of technical proficiency or conceptual art. Since I know a thing or two about art, but I also consider myself an engineer, let me tell you the story of this open source project I built the other day. But first, I don't know if you heard about him. This is Shepard Fairey's art. He is a well-known contemporary artist, activist, and founder of Bay Clothing, probably heard about him, who emerged from the skateboarding scene. Fairey also designed Barack Obama's posters, Hope, and as Wikipedia says, the Institute of Contemporary Art, Boston, has described him as one of the best known and most influential street artists. Recently, when the NFT boom emerged, he also created a collection of his NFT drawings. Some of the income was donated to charities. Another interesting person is, well, I will quote him, breaking new grounds and trying new things. It is an exciting place to be, by Mike Shinoda. He is in Linkin Park, Fort Major, singer of Fort Major. One of my favorite artists since childhood. Shinoda created Ziggurat's project, which with his own drawings and soundtracks. The NFT contains tracks that are in a random combination of drums, melody, and music, making a new unique piece. And let's see if it's gonna work. I don't think it works. Just a second. Wait. I think this is the speakers. Yeah. And it's gonna be on the loop. Wait. Can somebody help me with this? All right, thanks. Is it possible to do something with? Okay. Okay, so yeah, as I said, breaking new grounds and exciting, an exciting place to be. So yeah, let's see what he done.
Reasons all right, I got a chain of Max stores, I already got Genius Bar. I'll be here behind me, kid, don't even try me. I don't harm anybody, we're the better Bobby. I'm far, turn the hobby into people all up in the lobby.
So, well, as you saw, he tried to put different tracks in his NFTs, including different pictures, and all in all, it created combination of all his art. Right. So as a consequences, I get inspired looking at these guys. It has influenced me to hand draw somewhat similar images with the same figure my cat, but each of them would tell a different story. The novelty of the signature you can fake caught me thinking how easy it was before to pretend as someone else. Did it ever happen to you before when somebody sold you a fake item, I wonder? Because it happened to me, and turned out, did you know that it's quite a common problem? And in fact,
This is just a little store.
So you've got a Caravaggio.
6.5 foot basket. There's another emoji down in there.
Oh, this is Picasso.
I think I do Picasso. Sometimes I can do 2 or 3 in a day before breakfast, you know, because they're not that difficult. And I gave one to a friend of mine. He sold it. Someone bought it. They took it to the auction, and they valued it at $1 million.
Forgery is one of the greatest challenges the art world faces today. With fakes and misattributions estimated to be as high as 50% of all works in the art market.
So, 6 minutes too.
To combat this, there is sprung a multi-billion-dollar industry of authentication services. However, away from the premier art circuit, there is a blind spot where forgeries get through with ease. I'm on my way to meet David Henry.
Right, so NFT allow you to sign your work with a signature that you can fake, the contract that you can fail or abandon, so I heard. The new ways of self-expressing and finally involve people who appreciate your art by generating unique pieces on demand instead of having the problem you see on the slide here with paper waste, right? So I was like, okay, I'm gonna choose a flashy name for my project. It means many things, like things you can sell. For example, my love for Abby. Abby is my cat. I drew the first sample and minted the first drawing on Solana, which people say is eco-friendly network. A little note, just for your information, some marketplaces where you place your drawing cannot verify the artist unless you upload proof that you are an actual artist. So no matter on which platform I viewed my art, it was showing me as unverified. So I decided to do a hand-drawn, very sophisticated drawings because I was very pissed. To one of them, I've added the unverified tag to state the opposite. Hence, decided to state the opposite. I marked it as unverified, so to show that it's verified, actually. So, and then I thought about the traditional way of displaying art and thought, how cool would it be to own a digital art and yet to be able to showcase it on the wall of my apartment? The traditional alternatives were showcase it on the LCD screen, which is not ideal because of the expense and electricity consumption. They're therefore totally not eco-friendly. An interesting fact before we move on, did you know that the 55 LED screens on Times Square in a single year uses 58,765 megawatts, which is almost 50 times the energy used by the Tesla's network, and almost twice, more precisely 1.8 to be exact, the energy consumed by the Solana blockchain per year. Then I could use, I could live in a virtual world, right? Like this, for example, but it wasn't my thing to wear 3D goggles 24/7. Then I thought like, okay, I can print the poster, which kind of loses its purpose. Besides, using business printer wouldn't be ideal either, especially if we add paper ink to the equation, as printer alone won't do much as it's not self-sufficient. And then I was inspired once again. I got inspired one more time. Now I thought about the way to solve the problem. I drew a basic architecture of an idea I was picturing in my mind. I was like, okay, scan the QR code of the frame to identify the device. Pick the drawing from a wallet, select to print on the device you want. And then it sent a command to a Raspberry Pi to download an image and process it with Image Magic to match the screen size and render the drawing on the screen. And because in the past I already built a prototype where I made a way to connect a physical device to a web service, I decided to reuse my cool pattern of using MQTT for it, which made the backend become like this. It's like a draft. The architecture became simpler, except I have introduced the front end using Next.js, which plays a super important part in this project, involving digital ink displays this time. This is how it works.
E-ink's electronic ink enables e-paper displays. The ink is a thin film of microcapsules, each the diameter of a human hair. One display contains millions of capsules. The ink actually rearranges electronically to form the text and graphics. For example, let's look at how the word he is created. Here's a side view of one of the capsules which form that number. The top of the circle is what a person reading would see on the screen. The bottom of the circle is hidden underneath. Each microcapsule contains black and white ink particles which are electrically charged and suspended in a clear fluid. The white capsules are positively charged and the black particles are negatively charged. When a negative electrical field is applied to the bottom of the film, the negative black particles are repelled to the top of the capsule. This changes the area on the top surface to black. Simultaneously, the white particles move to the bottom where they are hidden to the viewer. By reversing this process, the white particles are driven to the top of the capsule, making the top surface appear light.
So this is how it works. And it turns out there are even colorful variations. This is great, I thought. I was like, wow, I didn't know there was an option for bigger models. I only heard about small ACP displays, and I was thinking, oh, wow, how cool it would be to have a large version, like a poster size, I asked myself. However, of course, I wasn't the only one, as you can see on the screen. Later, I found about the existence of larger versions, and under one of the video about a large e-ink display, I noticed I wasn't the only one who was thinking about how cool would it be. The only issue was it was costly. All of them are usually small, commonly black and white color. At the local hardware shop, I quickly looked for displays, found Inky and Waveshare. Before ordering a small version for the prototype, I decided to ping Waveshare company, asking if it's possible they make a custom screen size especially for me, which idea was ridiculous, but made sense, at least to find out if it's a good idea to deal with their dryer beforehand. And of course, I received rejection, of course. I was heartbroken. My idea a little bit failed. My perfect project will never see real life, I thought. And I won't be able to hang a digital poster on the wall as I dreamed. Even though sometimes my motivation score can go sky up, reaching the furthest galaxy, in about 2 weeks or so, it will probably go straight down to the bottom of the bottom, meeting with the inner core of our planet. Nevertheless, I continued with ups and downs because I was curious, and together with my friend, we implemented an example you see here. When you start a frame, it renders QR code, which you have to link through your camera. Now you open the camera, you point the QR code, it automatically reads the content and adds the frame. The shiny wharf, as you saw on the screen, is a random name generated for the frame. When you hit a print button, the Python script receives the hash object with a URL of image to download, resize, and print on the screen. Here you can see the services I'm running in lazy Docker, excluding the Raspberry Pi app, of course, you've seen on the previous slide. Nginx acts as a glue between frontend and backend, making it appear to a user as it's a single app. And, you know, I was pondering, what is point of your presentation, Aidan? When I used to watch talks from conferences, I would always look for some secrets. I was thinking smart people know something I don't. And the truth is, the project is basically Frankenstein. The only secret here is the fact that it is a combination of everything that helps to form a prototype I'm showing you now. For the first draft of implementing a gallery view for things in my wallet, I've used Gemland's implementation of Create the App Solana Next.js application. Then I've used React Image Lightbox by Frontend Collective to implement what a Lightbox. And after everything else here mentioned, I also used some help of my friends to discuss, pair, and share ideas with each other. I'm pretty sure this is always like this, but the open source allows you to make the prototype faster and easier. So woohoo to that. And as a result, you can see Raspberry Pi attached screen running script in a Docker container. I send the picture to draw on the display via frontend to the backend, then to the MQTT, and after to Raspberry Pi, because Raspberry Pi is listening on MQTT messages. Let's see how it works. And as a cherry on top, I turn off the device to show it doesn't need any more power to continue displaying the drawing. Since the project consists of open source parts, it is fully open source. You're welcome to commit, fork, and whatnot you usually do with open source project. And by the way, to keep the project more entertaining and to display the thinking process, you're welcome to follow the notes published here, which is kind of reality show by now. The message of this presentation is, I'm gonna quote a very famous person here. You probably heard about him before. If you have ideas, just do it. No need to wait. Start small to accomplish.
You said tomorrow. So just do it.
Exactly. Smart man. Yes, exactly.
Do it.
The goal to keep the motivation and continue adding piece by piece until it's done. And the last slide I want to dedicate to my friends. I'm honored to know. I hope I will pronounce it correct. Zille van Vrijheid, a self-organized group of volunteers and humanitarian aid. They have successfully prepared and delivered 86 ambulances to Ukraine that today saves lives, people like you and me. Recently, they started a new project called Bikes to Ukraine, since buying gas has become practically impossible. People all around Ukraine have self-organized to help each other to get food, medicine, and basic supplies. The reliable type of transport that doesn't require any gas is bicycle, of course. And if you want to help, donate your old bicycle to the organization, don't have a bicycle but still want to participate, you can donate money to scanning this QR code. And finally, if you have done what you can, but you still want to do more, tell about it to your friends. Thank you for your attention. Questions?
This is where you figure out that I didn't make good on my promise that I would get you something to drink now.
Oh, well, no worries.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, shall I hold the mic?
Yeah, sure.
I'll just. That last picture you saw about that was a fire truck. That was happening in my village, and it was a village of 650 houses, so everyone knew about this thing. So they are actually sending them out. Everyone like, what are all those things doing here? And then we saw the plates change, and it was quite clear. Anyway, question from Floor. I think it's an honest question because she was completely triggered by your sentence, the proof that you're an artist.
Yeah.
So what makes a person an artist?
Well, you draw these pictures, so you proving that it was made by you. This is what I meant by that.
Now, this is what they mean by this. So what is an artist from your perspective?
I can't answer that because I mean, everyone can be artists, and if you express your ideas, some people can better put it in words, some people can better describe it in art. For me, for example, personally, it's easier to describe with drawings, and I think that makes an artist.
Okay.
However, this is not exactly what they want to get from you. They want proof that you made these drawings. So you have to send pictures proving that you are an actual artist. So they would verify that you are actually created this.
It was, by the way, a fantastic scam on YouTube. People getting a lot of money out of YouTube while they weren't the creators of the thing. So they have a point there. But the question was more about what do you think actually means an artist? So thank you for your answer. So this was your first talk, right?
Yeah.
I think you did really well for a first talk, also live on the internet.
I did 5 rehearsals at home. I was annoying my wife, like, hey, listen, I gotta tell you something. And she's like, I saw it already, but this time it's different, slightly.
Well, I like it a lot. I think, you're a brave man. So, except for that, just an honest question. Why would you run this inside a Docker container on Raspberry Pi?
Because for fun, and because it was interesting to learn how these things work, and because in the future it simplifies the deployment process as well. So because I want to make it online in the future instead of just hosting on my local machine.
Okay, I guess.
Just because you can.
Yeah, and maybe that Raspberry Pi is doing a whole lot of other things in other Docker containers. Just I should be tinkering more, I guess. Anyway, if we can post a link to the project in this thread, I think it was shared in the presentation, right?
Yeah, probably.
Would you be trying to share this presentation in the general channel?
Yeah, I will.
Solve that question as well. So I have more questions, but I want to hear yours. So, anyone? Yes.
Do you live in Amsterdam?
Yes.
And if so, can we go running?
Yes, that would be fantastic.
So he's also up for running. If he lives in Amsterdam, so feel free to connect Aidan on our Slack, right?
Yes.
So,
Thanks.
I ruined my knees and don't live in Amsterdam anymore. Yes.
You said that you had sometimes ups and downs moment.
Yeah.
My question is, when you had this down moment, how did you manage to overcome it? What actually did you take to help you getting over it.
So the question is, you had ups and downs. How do you overcome your downs?
Yeah, this is this is a good question. When I used to study and I used to do a project I didn't like and I was really unmotivated, my teacher was always, she always said to me, just do it. Well,
That's your teacher. Of course.
yes. No, really, but seriously, I figured that go overcome that. You just start small, and like it's really annoying. You don't like it, but like once you already started, it's like sort of mechanism that you know like it's already working, and you just like you find some you create something. It inspires you, and then you go further and further. So it's. However, it's a really good question. I need to think to address and to answer it in a better shape.
Okay, good. Nice. From an ex-teacher perspective, I would say if you find yourself dug in a hole, stop digging and get help to get out of it. But yeah, what Aidan said is also true. Any other questions? No?
Well, it's not a question, it's more feedback. Yeah. I love how you combined your phone and the laptop to do this interactive presentation. That's really awesome because it made me not be distracted by you reading your presentation parts. So I love that. I think it's way better than my presentation, but that's a side note. I didn't say that out loud, did I? No, I'll just. No, and I think as a point of improvement, if you feel more comfortable, you can just stop hiding a bit behind the telephone screen and make some eye contact. And then you would probably have seen everyone getting super excited about what you showed because it's so inspiring.
Yeah, and the peeps that are here in real life already know that, well, just walking around here, it is very easy to connect to him. So yeah, you absolutely have a point. Other question? Yes.
So the color. So you said you were able to find the colored version of that.
Yes.
So, like, is it possible to find them?
Yes, it is. Like usually there are like 7 colors, let's say, but it's enough. Even though if you're gonna look closer, you will see that like it's not exactly the color you want. However, our imagination and how it works in us, like when we see it from far, from the distance, it looks. Yeah, it looks good. Yeah.
You probably can't sell it as a Picasso, though. Any other questions? I'm just looking at what Slack is bringing us. I see nothing coming in here. So that means get yourself a few drinks, I guess, especially you, and enjoy the moment. And we'll see you, by the way, in a month again, because then Amsterdam Ruby meetup will be back with a monthly iteration. Already have a venue. Better up. Anyway, next time. Let's. Yeah. So, and if you're here, there's some swag from HackerOne. So feel free to take some.